Today we are going to have a very important lecture on ecological restoration. So what is going to give you today, if you have this lecture, you are going to listen in this lecture, if you are going to attend this lecture, what is going to give you? It will make you to define ecological restoration. It will be able to make you to define reference conditions and how reference conditions are determined. Then you will be able to discuss reference conditions in the context of degraded ecosystems, of land or wetland or any natural areas in Delhi. Then a question arises, can we repair the damages humans have made or done to ecosystems and biodiversity? Yes, we can do that. We can reverse the conditions of this damaged or the land which has been degraded into a reverse condition through a term called ecological restoration. This can be defined, the process of assisting the recovery of an ecosystem that has been damaged, degraded or destroyed is called ecological restoration or eco-restoration. There are four components, or there are four kinds of that restoration or rehabilitation or remediation or reclamation that comes into a scene that we call restoration. But if we define these four conditions, that is rehabilitation, remediation, reclamation, restoration, the action of restoring present status to previous condition status is called rehabilitation. Remediation is the act of remedy, the remedy to rectify, to make good. Emphasis is on the process that rather than on the end point reached. Then reclamation is a term used for making of land fit for use or to bring back to a proper state. No implication of returning to an original state but rather than to a useful one. Then the very important, restoration. The act of restoring a land to a former original state or position is called restoration. People may ask, what is ecological restoration and what is restoration ecology? So ecological restoration is practices that you reclaim the land, you revive the land, you bring back the areas into a pristine or the damaged one. It is called as eco-restoration. And the restoration ecology is science that strengthens it. Means it is the theoretical model that you read and you apply through ecological restoration, that is called as practices. Then restoration projects differ in their objectives and methods of achievement those goals that we defined earlier, means revegetation. So these are habitat enhancement, remediation and mitigation. So establishment of vegetation on sites where it has been previously lost and often with erosion controls as the primary goals. Then comes the habitat enhancement, the process of increasing suitability of a site as a habitat for some desired species. Then remediation, improving an existing ecosystem or creating a new one with the aim of replacing another that has been destroyed or deteriorated. Then mitigation, so it is legality or it is mandatory that the loss of protected species or ecosystem should be that restored. Then ecological restoration on research has largely focused on community ecology and restoration ecosystem with particular attention to plants. However, animal reintroduction, a common element of conservation biology, is also essentially restoration. After mid of 20th century, restoration ecology is now established as a science and studied in many research institutions. Internal societies and journals such as Society for Ecological Restoration and its journal Ecological Restoration and Restoration Ecology are dedicated to furthering knowledge of restoration science and practices. In fact, ecological restoration can be used as a practical test of our ecological understanding. Conversely, ecological restoration can reveal the binding of ecology then keystone concepts of restoration. So it is disturbance. It can occur with fire, with mining, with grazing. That disturbs our natural ecosystem, and these are the binding, or these are the forces or drivers that disturb our natural habitat. What we see, the mining, the road infrastructure, the developmental activities, excess use of natural resources have damaged our surroundings, and everywhere you see that is a term. If you say the climate change, the outburst of clouds, the landslide, the floods, the casualties of either to human being or to natural ecosystems is all going on worldwide. Just if you see that it gives you 4 bullet points, you can define through 4 bullet points, that is rehabilitation, remediation, reclamation and restoration. These are all phases of restoration. To some extent, that rehabilitation means to bring back its present state, remediation is act of that, and the rehabilitation is just to shift one thing to another, and that counts reintroduction also. And then restoration is something to bring back any of the area, any of the state to its original state, and that involves the theoretical knowledge, that involves the total landscape ecology and the species requirement of any organism, and then you can reclaim, you can revive, you can rehabilitate, or you can restore any damaged area. It can be through mining. I'll take one example, and in mining areas you get the highly damaged ecosystem. What is the outcome of that? You finish the topsoil layer, you just dump the dumping material, you just eradicate the entire ecosystem from that area, and if it is open cast mining, you dump those dumping material just in the surrounding areas. If it is the deep mining areas, again you are just excavating things and just taking down somewhere else. So this is what the kind of mining that is being done. So if it is open cast mining or the quarries mining, the entire dumped material, it is being dumped in the surrounding areas, and the entire this vegetation is finished now. And what it does, it never gives the ecological services. It finished the entire vegetation either in a small area or in a bigger area. So the first initiative should be that we must bring back the lost biological diversity if we want to restore that area, and that would be through bringing back the natural vegetation. That should be through the community ecology conservation approach or the biotic communities ecological conservation approach. Means we have to bring back the native plants communities, we have to bring back the natural ecosystems over there. But the mining area, what it gives you the man-made climate also. So you can play with your knowledge, your understanding that the man-made climatic conditions can be developed as per different plant communities, and they can attract some different kind of mosaicness of habitat within that mining areas into. So but the foremost thing that you must bring back the species diversity within, otherwise you cannot talk about what it was. So you have to just go through what it was, what is the local vegetation was there, what kind of forest was there. If it is going to be a hill ranges, fine it is, you just go through the local vegetation, you just read out the references being done or recorded in the earlier times. Then this one model that develop. Then the mining areas, if you are going to cover, you must see the microclimate developed by human intervention. So there must be some differences. So there you can play with some different kind of vegetation types, and that will bring back the original stage at the landscape level without disturbing the landscape or if you're desiring just to create some other ecosystem, then again you have to, in my opinion, that what references says that you always go with the local varieties, because they'll be doing better, they'll be giving you good results, and they'll be attracting the local animal communities, and both together they will form the functional living ecosystems over there. Then the modules of conservation, because the ecological restoration is something to provide ecological services to the locals, and not ecological services to human being itself, but ecological services to the inhabitants. They have been developed over there, either plant communities or plants, or the animal communities. They have found their home as part of their livelihood. So this is what I am talking about, the rights. The rights of, it's not only the human being, they should get right out of benefit from the ecosystem or ecological services, but the rights of the entire organism on this earth rather, or the ecosystem we are going to just establish over there. So my point is, we must always take the local species to be introduced as a part of vegetation and as a part of community, and in any of the areas there should be mosaicness within the habitat itself. So the model of restoration should be, there should be a mosaicness of habitat. Depression should be the small water bodies or seasonal water bodies. It will be during rainy season, and then if it is the depression areas, they can be a rangeland over there. If it is a mining area, it can have a moist forest. They will attract the moist species of animal communities or plant species over there, and moreover the local species. What they will do? They will just lessen the effort of maintenance also in future, and in due course of time, if we bring back the local vegetation or the local varieties of plants as a part of, in the form of animal or plant communities, there will be a very limited, I would say, the effort, and the ecosystem become self-sustaining. It is not only the right of human being that they should persist on this earth, and being masters that humans are, they have been given a special power just to manage, to think, to communicate, and to just feel that what is happening, and we can just repair all these things. So my thing is that it is not the human being only that we just have a right just to live, but no, every organism on this earth have a right to. So it is their right also that we must for them, and if we are working for them, I think we will be getting benefit out of this, because entire interactions of plants and animal together, they benefit each other, and their outcomes, they benefit each other, and if any of the linkages are not there, or any of the species become extinct, there is a damage in energy cycle, and there is a gap in the energy cycle. Like for example, if we take example of a tiger, if it is not in a forest, the entire trophic structure is disbalanced or disturbed. Means the herbivory, it is not the herbivory is deer or the ungulates or what. Herbivory is grasshoppers also. So the cycle, the energy cycle is disturbed, and it will not be sustainable. So you need, to the bottom, the trophic structure should be maintained if you want to have a sustainable this thing. So there comes that you think about if it is a restoration of any ecosystem or degraded ecosystem or degraded area, you must think about to have a model of self-sustaining ecosystem, and it should maintain the trophic structure. It will take some time, certainly. It is not that we are going to achieve the entire natural model of ecosystem. That will take hundreds of years to come, but certainly there can be that we can lessen the efforts of or spending too much of money in all these things, and if we just bring back the local vegetation, the local communities in any of the areas, and it is not, that can become a reference example of that. We started developing biodiversity parks in Delhi. Delhi is known by two life supporting systems, river Yamuna and portions of Aravallis. And both the ecosystems of Delhi are degraded now. Both are not giving services to human being because we expanded in every terms. We expanded in every terms in a sense from just 20 lakhs some 70 years back to 171 lakhs now, Delhi's population. And then some 50 to 70 lakhs vehicle. So both together, all together, they are forming some 2.2 crore population. They are using the common environment. So earlier it used to be huge land available for very less population, very limited demand. But as we expanded, we just increased our population and demands. We damaged the two ecosystems of Delhi. So what we have done, we have taken over a challenge to restore these two lands into a biodiversity park that is depicting the lost ecosystems of Delhi. And both the parks rather covering almost more than 1200 acres of land, and both are depicting Delhi ecosystem. And some 16-17 years back, both the lands were supporting very few animal communities, very few native plant species over here, because they were degraded, they were finished off. And take example of Yamuna Biodiversity Park, it was on a sodic land, now it is luxuriant forest and having all mosaicness of ecosystems over there. And if you take example of Aravalli Biodiversity Park, it is on a part of Delhi Ridge, on Aravallis, mined out areas. So this is typical example. Aravalli Biodiversity Park is typical example of restoration of degraded ecosystems, and that is true in Delhi itself. So this was done some 14 years back. Entirely it is open cast mining is there. Then surveys were made into the entire area, and the landscape was just seen over here, and what was available we have seen that what can be done, and then we have read out, we have just gone through what was available, what kind of vegetation was there, what animals were here. Then we have gone through the entire Aravallis from Delhi to Pavagadh, the extent of Aravallis are. Then when we came back, we have seen some different kind of the man-made climatic conditions due to mining activities. So we have not altered any of the landscape. As the first restoration ecology is, do not alter any land. Then at landscape level, we have just made the model, predictions model, that where what should come, but not gone beyond the local vegetation. So we selected the local vegetation, the local plant communities, we surveyed the entire area of Aravallis, and we just made that how many species should be introduced in how many community or landscape levels. So we developed terrestrial forest, we developed rangeland, we developed moist areas into mining areas. And I am telling you that after covering of some 13 years of this thing, we have now covered some 700 acres of land into a pristine forest of Delhi Aravallis, that is Aravalli Biodiversity Park. And if you go to the biodiversity profile of this area, that restoring biological diversity or restoration degraded ecosystem, what it has given to us, when initially we surveyed the area, the number of butterflies were too low, but now it has gone to more than 100. The bird species from just 30 to 35 to plus 200 bird species now it is. Then the mammals, the reptiles, the other animals, they have increased. So they form the typical functional ecosystem of biotic communities. And some of the species which were never spotted in Delhi, we spotted them. Like Indian pitta, it was 70 years we have spotted this in one of the mining pits. So my point is, we predicted that we will bring them back the pristinity of this area, that is called restoration of the area. So this Indian pitta, that is found mostly in moist tropical forests. It was sighted in our mining pits. Then the black eagle, it was spotted after 90 years in Aravalli Biodiversity Park. Then Indian pied hornbill, which was spotted some 20 years back, that in Aravalli Biodiversity Park. So these animals are predictor models. They evaluate, if you evaluate animals, you can evaluate the area. So, and birds are the very typical example. Butterflies are very typical example of restoration of any area. So my point is, restoration is just to bring back the local plant communities which we have lost from here. Then you can think about the animal communities also. And it was a successful story in Delhi itself. So I would say that each the concern, the resource persons or the concerned beneficiary of this should visit these biodiversity park and should have a more practical concept of the restoration ecology or restoration of degraded systems across the world. So it was, if we take example of Yamuna and Aravallis, we can extrapolate ourselves. We can extrapolate this model into the entire Yamuna river basin or to the entire Delhi ridge, or if you go beyond that, we can think about conserving the entire Aravallis. That is the most important, and it is the oldest mountain system of Delhi. So this is what we have done, and live example. And here I will finish my this lecture. And everybody is most welcome to visit Biodiversity Park and see how restoration or creation can create or can conserve ecosystem, can just revive the lost ecosystems anywhere if he is going to implement this kind of work, either restoration or creation of the damaged ecosystems. Thank you.